Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the son of Thor and got harem? Part 2. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time, let's get into the video. The moment Artemis, Apollo and Dionysus arrived on Olympus, the moon goddess had called for a meeting, even requesting that Hades be summoned as well to attend. Given what she had to tell them would be important for all of the Olympians to hear. With it not being long before all of the Olympians gathered together, all of them in their thrones and Hestia tending to the hearth in the center. "Artemis, why have you called for this meeting?" questioned Zeus, looking at his daughter, knowing she wasn't one to ever request a meeting be held, let alone ask that Hades join them. That was enough for him to know that whatever it was she wished to tell them had to be important and possibly dangerous to Olympus. "It's a matter of great importance, father. Not long ago my hunters and I had been on the trail of a monster, one I haven't sensed for centuries. However, we ended up encountering a manticore that had attacked a group of demigods consisting of NarutoxPercyJackson, Annabeth Chase, Thalia Grace, and the satyr Grover Underwood. They'd been sent from camp to find two demigods by the names of Bianca D'Angelo and Nico D'Angelo. Artemis explained, causing Zeus, Poseidon and Athena to all tense at the mention of their own demigods, while Hades clenched his armrests tightly at the latter two names. "Are they well?" Poseidon asked, concerned that something might have happened to Andromeda. "Did Jackson become monster food?" said Ares with an eager smirk, with the god of the sea glaring at him along with Artemis. "No, she did not, and the rest of the demigods are well. Though uncle, I gave Andromeda the offer to join the hunters, and she accepted due to," said Artemis, turning to Poseidon before trailing off and glancing at Hermes, who hung his head in shame, fully aware of how Luke's betrayal affected Andromeda. "I see. I'm sure she will make a fine hunter," said Poseidon with a small frown that Andromeda would join the hunters, but couldn't fault her for why she would. "You just love to ruin everything for me, don't you? She had so much potential and now it's gone," Aphrodite said, glaring at Artemis in annoyance for recruiting Andromeda, taking away her chance at finding love or breaking hearts. "Aphrodite?" said Zeus, giving the love goddess a warning look before turning back to Artemis. "Well, I'm sure you were able to handle the manticore just fine, daughter. I don't see how this required a meeting to be called," Zeus stated, only for Artemis to frown gravely at them all. "My hunters nor I were the ones who killed the manticore, neither were any of the demigods. There was someone else present, they seemed to be a friend of the D'Angelo siblings. But he weren't Greek, nor were there Amanthi were an Aesir," Artemis revealed, much to the shock of all the Olympians, aside from Apollo and Dionysus. "What? They dare try to invade into our land? Which of those barbarians dared to set foot this close to Olympus?" demanded Zeus, enraged at the idea of anyone from another pantheon had entered their territory. "Tell me where they are, I'll go after them," Ares said eagerly, refusing to pass up the chance to fight an Aesir, knowing nearly all of them lived for fighting and killing, making it so he always could get a good challenge from them. "I take it this person is only a demigod," stated Hades, making everyone look at him. "He's correct. If it was one of the Aesir gods, we would already know, and it's unlikely any of the demigods or hunters would have survived. The fact that they are close to these two new demigods only confirms they are merely a demigod themselves," Athena added in agreement, knowing that no Aesir god would care about any Greek demigod, let alone spare them. "Even so, this is still a violation, for any demigod from another pantheon to enter into our lands is nothing short of an act of war." "Artemis, have you dealt with insolent Aesir?" said Zeus, hoping that she eliminated the demigod before they could threaten Olympus or bring more of their kind here. "I couldn't," Artemis said, much to their disbelief. "You couldn't handle a single demigod?" questioned Hermes with a raised brow. "I didn't know. As with who their sire is, I had no way of knowing how powerful they were if a battle between us would endanger my hunters or the demigods," said Artemis through gritted teeth, not liking the blow to her pride at having no idea if she'd even be able to beat Naruto. "Who is their sire, Artemis?" Hestia asked, looking at her niece, wondering who it could be that she'd doubt her own abilities to beat them. "His name is Naruto Thorson," Artemis revealed while waiting the reaction she expected the name would get from them all. With it taking a few moments for the name to register before they all heard thunder and lightning exploding overhead. "That fat, drunken fool dares send his spawn into my realm," yelled Zeus, now completely enraged that a child of Thor was here, despising the Norse god above all others. Not only for the fact he dared to have domain over the power of lightning and storms, but also the fact of how popular he's become among humans and their modern media. Well, he only saw Thor as nothing but a cheap imitation of his own image. "I'll go deal with him," Ares offered, shooting up to his feet, more excited than ever to go and fight Naruto at learning he's the son of Thor. If there'd be anyone he could get a challenge from, it's a demigod of the Norse god of thunder. "Sit down now, Ares," Zeus ordered, refusing to have his war-obsessed son do anything that would antagonize the Aesir tribe, as much as he hated to admit that Thor alone would raise Olympus if angered. But the war god slowly sitting down, torn between his desire to go fight the Aesir demigod and his self-preservation at not angering his father, further. Lovely, as if we needed another butchering bastard around. Muttered Hera, annoyed at learning a demigod of Thor was here. Already not liking the Aesir for being a bunch of bloodthirsty, sadistic and arrogant murderers, with Thor being the worst of them all. Now they had to deal with his son being in their territory, and she didn't doubt he's no different from his father. Along with the fact that Thor could be considered her husband's counterpart, in terms of their powers at least. It's as if she now had to deal with another one of Zeus's demigods. HMPH, those Norse are nothing but trouble, always drinking, fighting and eating nothing but meat. Perhaps they'd be more dignified if they put some cereal in their diet. Maybe their demigods have a chance, but I doubt they're any different. Stated Demeter while crossing her arms with a huff, not having a high opinion of the Norse pantheon with how violent they are. Did he have a weapon of his own? If so, did you get a good look at it and how it was made? Hephaestus asked, being more curious of the weapon Naruto would have, knowing that Norse gods tended to get dwarves to make their weapons. And if there's one race the smith god respected as much as his Cyclops workers, it's the dwarves and their creations. With Hephaestus having always desired to meet them or at the very least study their creations, but knew with his father's paranoia he'd never get the chance. He used an axe and no, I didn't get a look at it, but I would guess it was made by dwarves. Just as his father's hammer was. Replied Artemis, having not really bothered to focus on Naruto's axe, being more focused on an Aesir being in their territory and with what she learned from Bianca and Andromeda. How strong was he? What did he look like? Did he seem really violent? Aphrodite questioned eagerly, wanting to know the details of Naruto's appearance and how strong he could be. As well most of the Norse gods by not be pleasing to look at, Aphrodite couldn't deny the appeal of how rough they could get, which would make time in bed even more fun. She just wanted to make sure he wouldn't end up hurting any of her daughters or if she needed to try him out herself first. I wouldn't try it, the Aesir are evil. Apollo said hauntingly, hoping he never has to go near a Norse god again after what happened with Sol. Do you believe he could be a threat, sister? Athena asked, unable to deny her intrigue at the chance to observe a demigod from another pantheon, even if he is an Aesir, it'd be interesting to see how different they are compared to their own. I believe he would only be a threat if anything is done to anger him or harm those he cares for. Replied Artemis, given how Naruto said the only reason he's staying is for Bianca and Nico. I believe the more important questions are what are his intentions and why is here. Did this Naruto tell you anything, Artemis? Said Poseidon, making most of the Olympians look at her. He did, he says that he came here to hide from the rest of the Aesir, as what little he did reveal is that he doesn't care much for his family and wanted to escape them. As for his intentions, it seems that his only intention is protecting those he cares for, which at the moment is only the D'Angelo siblings and perhaps the demigod sent to recruit them. Artemis said, with Hades relaxing slightly on his throne. Does that mean you brought him to camp? Hermes asked in concern, with most of the other Olympians that have demigods tensing at the idea of their children being around an Aesir. Yes, as I believed it'd be better for us to keep an eye on him there than allow him to roam around freely and risk drawing the other Aesir here. Replied Artemis, with Zeus nodding at this. Good, very good. You made the correct decision, daughter, we can't allow any outsider to move freely in our realm. But we also must ensure the Aesir doesn't step out of line, so he will be watched and eliminated should he try threatening Olympus. Zeus said, refusing to let anything threaten his power, especially not the child of that half-wit Thor. Don't look at me, I already have enough brats to look after. Thanks by the way for taking Ashley off my hands, brat can't handle the pressure, I guess. Said Dionysus, muttering the last part to himself, having no intentions of watching a demigod he didn't need to. I'll do it. I won't let the runt out of my sight. Ares said, hopefully with a wicked grin. I'd happily keep a close eye on him. Even make sure he doesn't even think of going against Olympus. Aphrodite offered eagerly. I would be willingly to observe the Aesir, father. Athena said, seeing it as a good chance to study him more closely. I have already decided that Artemis will be the one to watch the Aesir. She is the one who found him and brought him to camp, so she will have the responsibility of watching the boy and eliminating him should he be plotting against Olympus. Zeus said, making Ares scowl in annoyance, while Aphrodite pouted at the missed opportunity. With Artemis also being annoyed that she's being sent to basically babysit Naruto, especially since she had other business to deal with. Father, I ask that you please choose another to watch the Aesir. I can't with the monster I must hunt down, along with investigating what Andromeda and Bianca learned from the Manticore, of more monsters rising up, and even the general being said Artemis, only for Zeus to slam his fist down on his throne, releasing a boom of thunder. Enough. I will hear no more talk of the Titans. They are gone and imprisoned, while the general remains trapped under the sky. Zu said, still in denial that the Titans were rising, that the chance of Chronos returning was a possibility. Even if they aren't, this monster is one that needs to be dealt with. If I'm right, then the Bane of Olympus has returned, and if it's found, then all of us are doomed no matter what. Artemis argued, something that shocked and concerned the Olympians, that the Bane of Olympus could have reformed. Then someone else can track the monster down and deal with it. But you will be the one to watch the Aesir, and that's final. Said Zeus in a tone of finality. I could track it down, it wouldn't take long for me to find where it's hiding under the sun. Apollo offered, willing to hunt down the monster in his sister's stead. Though the sun god didn't mention his other concern of wanting to check on his oracles. As after seeing Naruto, his visions of the future have started getting blurry, as if they were changing or disappearing. Something that really concerned Apollo, as he couldn't even see the great prophecy clearly anymore. Showing that either the future was changing, in which case he'll hopefully get visions of it soon. Or the more concerning option is that he's no longer able to see anything that's going to happen. With him hoping it's just the former, so he hoped to check on the oracles to make sure nothing was wrong with them as well. Then it's settled, Apollo will go after whatever monster Artemis sensed, and Artemis will remain at Camp Half-Blood to ensure the Aesir stays in line. Zeus said, much to Artemis's chagrin. Though before he could call the meeting to be adjourned, Hestia gasped as she looked into the fire of the hearth, getting everyone's attention. Only for the goddess of the hearth to have the fire flare up and display an image of Camp Half-Blood. With all the Olympians being shocked to see Bianca and Nico, both of them having black and gold holographic helms over their heads. It is decided. The god of the dead and riches, lord of the underworld. Hail Bianca D'Angelo, daughter of Hades. Hail Nico D'Angelo, son of Hades. Declared Chiron as the assembled demigods bowed to the D'Angelo siblings. Hades. You dare break your oath, demanded Zeus, glaring at his eldest brother for breaking the oath, Demeter doing the same, that he cheated on her daughter twice. Only for Hades to give Zeus a dark look as the shadows flared within the throne room, angered that he dare accuse him of breaking his oath. I have broken nothing, brother. Bianca and Nico were both born before the oath was made, kept safe and secure within the Lotus Hotel. Safe from you trying to blast them again, like you did their mother. You remember, Maria D'Angelo. You remember what you did, right, because I most certainly do. Hades hissed, bitterness and protectiveness lacing his tone, while Zeus's fury turned into meekness and at his brother's anger. Is of course. Then this meeting is adjourned. Said Zeus, vanishing in a bolt of lightning, with the other gods soon leaving as well. Artemis sighed as she prepared to return to camp, only to stop when she saw Poseidon approaching her. I take it you wish to ask about Andromeda. Artemis stated, with the sea god shaking his head. No, she has made her choice and I won't argue against it. If joining the hunters is what she truly desires, she'll have my support. Said Poseidon, not upset at Andromeda's decision, as no matter what she's still his daughter. And he can't deny the perks she'll have from being not only his daughter, but now having the blessing of the moon goddess as well. All that I ask is that you take care of her, and that if Andy ever decides that being a hunter isn't what she wants, you don't hold it against her for wanting to leave. Poseidon said, knowing Andromeda was like the sea, unable to be restrained or held down to any one thing. Of course, uncle. As long as Andromeda is one of my hunters, I will do everything in my power to ensure no harm befalls her. And should the time come she wishes to leave, I will let her go freely to follow whichever path she desires. Replied Artemis, with Poseidon nodding in gratitude. She actually reminds me of Sally a little, especially her temper and tendency to backtalk a lot to anyone. Especially those that annoy her. Artemis added with a small smirk at how similar Andromeda was to her mother, making Poseidon chuckle and nod in agreement. She is her mother's daughter after all. Stated Poseidon, remembering how Sally always was when they first met and that Andromeda could be just as much of a spitfire as her. But that the two Olympians left, Poseidon going back to his kingdom and Artemis to Camp Half-Blood. With Naruto. Meanwhile, after leaving the big house, Annabeth and Thalia began showing Naruto around Camp Half-Blood. With a whiskered Reed taking in the side of the camp once they were outside and couldn't help but find it all rather lacking. They're training to be heroes and fight monsters, yet this barely different from a human summer camp, he'd be nothing but fresh meat for a few wolvers. Thought Naruto, unimpressed with the training he was seeing being done. So, you both had questions you wanted to ask. Naruto stated as they walked through camp. Yeah. For starters, what kind of monsters have you gone against? Questioned Annabeth, wondering monsters existed in the Norse pantheon. Better question would be which ones haven't I gone against? I've killed practically one of everything I could find, Draugr, trolls, ogres, ancients, wolvers, hellwalkers, berserkers, even a dragon. Replied Naruto, much to Annabeth's and Thalia's shock, which only grew at hearing he's fought a dragon. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You've fought a dragon, Thalia said in disbelief that he fought a dragon. I've killed a dragon, but it wasn't easy. They're some of the strongest monsters around, but if you know how to kill them, they get easier. My uncle Balder actually has a dragon as his mount, helps him get around faster. Naruto said, with their eyes widening that his uncle basically had a pet dragon. What about those other monsters? What are they like? Annabeth asked, wondering if any of the other monsters were less dangerous compared to a dragon. Well, Draugr are the most common type of monsters you'd find. They're undead warriors that refuse to be brought to Valhalla by the Valkyries, fighting them to stay on Midgard while becoming burned from the battle, and driven by hatred and a desire for revenge. They're pretty easy to beat, but they make up for it with appearing in large numbers and different types that use different weapons, shields and magic. While being either really strong or fast. Trolls can be a real problem as they're smarter than your average monster, along with being very strong, they also usually carry around stone columns as a weapon, sometimes even having control over an element. Ogres are basically just smaller, dumber versions of trolls, think of them like really big, angry gorillas. Naruto explained before taking a breath and continuing. Ancients are also very dangerous and strong, not to mention nearly invincible, as their entire bodies are made of stone, making it impossible to actually hurt them, with the only vulnerable part being their heart in the center of their bodies. Which is only exposed when they attack, so if you want to hurt them then you need to be fast enough to dodge their attacks. Wolvers, I guess, are kind of like werewolves. But the difference is they aren't nor were they ever human, they're more like ancient spirits, but they're fierce and deadly to even experienced warriors. Hellwalkers are like Draugr and are native to Helheim, which makes them immune to the cold, so usually whenever I encounter them, I have to use my hands, since my axe only has ice powers. And berserkers, Naruto said, only for Annabeth to interrupt him. Do have heard of those, but how are they monsters? Aren't berserkers just Norse warriors that dress up in animal skins and bones, believing it helps them channel that animal's power and fury? Said Annabeth, only for the Uzumaki to shake his head. You're partially right, berserkers do wear the skins and bones of bears, wolves and boars to gain their strength, speed, endurance and fury. Berserkers are malevolent spirits that will fight and kill anything that moves, they don't hesitate in their attacks, nor do they feel pain, you could cut off their arm, and they wouldn't even flinch and simply keep attacking. The only thing that'll make them stop is to instantly kill them, otherwise they'll ignore any other wound and not stop until either you die or they do. That had been one of my tests, killing a berserker. The bastard nearly cut me in half, so I made sure to return the favor. Replied Naruto, with both girls looking at him in shock and disbelief. How are you not dead? Thalia asked, wondering how it's possible for anyone to survive what he's been through. I'm too stubborn, I guess. Naruto said with a shrug, not mentioning how his father could also use Mjolnir as a defibrillator to restart a person's heart if necessary. With it having been necessary more than a few times during his training. Clearly. Stated Thalia, not sure if she should admire that or feel sorry for what he's gone against. What about your family? You mentioned you had 2 brothers and a sister. Those are Magni, Modi, and Thrud, right? Annabeth said, with a whiskered Reed nodding in response. That's right, Magni and Modi are my brothers, and complete assholes. Both of them are just as sadistic, bloodthirsty and arrogant as the rest of our family. The only positive thing I can say about Magni is that he's the less impulsive and immature of the 2. Having his own twisted sense of honor, but still prefers battling strong opponents. As for Modi, nobody likes Modi and probably wouldn't care what happens to him. Naruto said, making the girls frown, especially Thalia. Seriously? He is your brother, there has to be something good about him. Thalia said, given how she looked after her own brother. Modi is nothing but a bully with powers, he never fights anyone that's stronger than him. Always preferring to fight those he knows are much weaker than him, opponents who wouldn't even be able to scratch him. Along with taunting and insulting people to make them angry. He said Naruto before stopping and clenching his fists in anger, with the 2 looking at him in concern. What did he do? Thalia asked, only to subconsciously tense when Naruto opened his eyes, showing they were glowing with electricity. He insulted my mother once, so I took his mace and beat him within an inch of his life with it, breaking every bone in his body and ripping out each one of his teeth. And swore that if he ever said anything about her again, I'd make him eat his own heart. He was at least smart enough to know that I would. Naruto said, causing the girls to shiver and not doubt he would carry out that threat. Seeing their reactions, Naruto took a few deep breaths to calm himself down before looking at them. Sorry, I just get really angry when anyone talks about my mother the way Modi did. But together, he and Magni are a dangerous team and both of them are driven by their desire to impress our father. To be the one he chooses to inherit his hammer. Said Naruto, with Annabeth and Thalia nodding in response. It's fine. I guess anyone would get angry if their mom was insulted. Said Thalia. What about Thrud? That's Thor's daughter with Sif, right? Questioned Annabeth, making the whiskered Reed nod with a small smile. Yeah, that's her. Thread is the one member of my family I'm the closest to, helping me whenever she can and always being there when I need her. She was the first person to fully welcome me when I was brought to Asgard. She's also a born warrior, being one of the strongest fighters I know. But she's also got a temper. If you get on her bad side, then you're liable to be hit by lightning. Naruto said, making Annabeth smirking slightly at Thalia. Sounds familiar, doesn't it, Thalia? Annabeth stated. The daughter of Zeus rolled her eyes, but still smiled and shoved her lightly, before she looked at Naruto's axe hanging from his back. Is she the one who gave you that axe? Asked Thalia while motioning to it, making the Uzumaki turn his head before grabbing it. The Leviathan axe. No, Thrud would have preferred giving me a sword, probably. This was actually given to me by Loki. Naruto replied, surprising them. Okay, before we say anything or assume what Loki's like, what is he like? Annabeth said, doubting Loki is like how he's depicted in pop culture. Well, for starters, Loki isn't Thor's adopted brother. I honestly have no idea where humans got that idea from. He is a Jotun though, a frost giant specifically, but that doesn't mean he's an actual giant though or that he has control over ice and snow. But he is good at magic and understanding languages, some that even the All-Father can't read. He also doesn't use daggers, he uses a bow instead, along with a sword called Ingrid. But one thing that's right is how he and Heimdall despise each other. Said Naruto, with Annabeth and Thalia nodding in response. And I'm guessing he's good with an axe if he's the one who gave you that. Stated Thalia, only for Naruto to shake his head. Not really, well he's good with using an axe, it's not a weapon he uses a lot. The Leviathan axe actually belonged to his mother, Laufey, with his father then inheriting it when she died, and then Loki inherited it afterwards, before then giving it to me. Naruto replied, surprising them that he'd give Naruto an axe that both his parents used. Why is it called the Leviathan axe? And how is it able to freeze things? Annabeth asked, curious at where the name came from and its powers. The dwarves who made it named it after Jormungandr and infused it with the echoing screams of 20 frost trolls. And if what Loki told me is true, it's as powerful as my father's hammer. Revealed Naruto, much to their shock. That thing just as powerful as a god's weapon, Thalia said in disbelief, along with feeling a little jealous that he had such a powerful weapon. I don't know, I've never tested it out, and I'd prefer not giving my father any reasons to stop holding back during my training. Naruto said, unsure if it's true and didn't want to risk even more pain by attacking his father with it. Before the whiskered Reed frowned as they arrived at the divine cabins, where all the demigods stayed, seeing that all of them look different from each other. I'm guessing these are where you all stay, here. Stated Naruto, motioning to the cabins arranged in a large U shape. That's right. Each of the cabins corresponds with each of the 12 Olympians. Cabin 1 is obviously Zeus's cabin. Annabeth replied, pointing to the cabin at the very front. The cabin was made entirely of white marble and looked like a mausoleum, with heavy columns. The big bronze double doors were polished in such a way to provide a holographic effect of lightning bolts passing across. And you stay there? Naruto asked, looking at Thalia with a raised brow as the Ravenet nodded with a sigh. Yeah. But don't think it's all great having a cabin to yourself, it honestly sucks. There's nothing in there except a giant statue of my dad that feels like it's always watching you. I actually had to put my stuff in the only corner where it's not constantly watching me. Thalia said, honestly hating staying in the cabin by herself, feeling like she's back in her tree. So just another monument to his overinflated ego, of course. Thought Naruto while shaking his head, having heard of Zeus's arrogance and high opinion of himself. Then I guess that one there is Hera's cabin. Why does she even have one? Naruto asked, looking at Hera's cabin next to Zeus's. It's another marble formal-looking building, graceful with slim columns garlanded with pomegranates and flowers. It is done similarly to Zeus's cabin except smaller, however, Hera's cabin is more graceful. Having slimmer columns with pomegranates and flowers around them. The walls also have images of P-beeps carved on them, as well as the doors. Yeah, that's Hera's. And it's only to honor her since as the goddess of marriage, she doesn't have any demigods or affairs. Annabeth replied, making Naruto sigh tiredly. And then cabin 3, Poseidon's cabin, which is now empty after Andromeda chose to become a Girl Scout. Said Thalia with a scowl as she looked at Poseidon's cabin. Rather than looking like a temple or mausoleum, Poseidon's cabin is a long, low building with windows facing the ocean. The cabin being made from rough sea stone, pieces of coral and seashell embedded into the outside walls, and a trident with a big bronze number 3 over the door. So, since the kid is a hunter now, does that mean she can't stay in there anymore? Naruto asked, curious of how that worked, since Poseidon is her father yet now she's a hunter of Artemis. It depends on her I guess. I doubt Poseidon would refuse to let her stay there, but Andy will likely stay with the other hunters in Artemis's cabin. But only during the times they come to camp, as usually they're always on the move. Replied Annabeth, frowning sadly at the idea Andromeda will hardly ever be a camp now. The less they're here the better, then. Thalia muttered bitterly. Is that cabin's roof actually made of grass? Said Naruto, changing the subject along with genuinely being confused by the next cabin. The cabin was a light brown color and covered in flowers, and tomato plants grow on the walls and doorway. Wildflowers and roses grow on the porch, while the roof itself seemed to be made entirely of grass. Yep, that's Demeter's cabin, don't ask how the roof can be real grass. It's better for your sanity to just accept it. Said Thalia, shaking her head, having chosen to just blame magic for anything she hasn't figured out, while Naruto nodded slowly in response. After that is the Ares' cabin. Annabeth said, looking at the next cabin in annoyance. The cabin was badly painted red and has a large boar's head over the door with barbed wire on the roof. There have been mentions of the cabin being lined with landmines. Well, the three could hear loud rock music constantly blaring from it. I already don't like it. Naruto stated in annoyance at the loud music before turning to the next cabin. The cabin itself didn't have anything special about it, being the most simple looking as gray building with plain white curtains and a design of an owl over the door. And that must be Athena's cabin. Where you stay. Said Naruto, looking at Annabeth, the daughter of Athena, nodding with a pleased expression. That's right. And it looks way better on the inside. It's filled with thousands of books and old scrolls to read, 3D models of buildings, blueprints, old war maps and armor, cupboards filled with materials to build things, as well as smart boards to write down anything we need. And I'm the head counselor of the cabin. Annabeth said, puffing her chest out in pride, making Naruto smile at her enthusiasm, while Thalia rolled her eyes fondly. Has anyone told you, you look very cute when you're excited? Naruto said, causing the blonde demigod to blush, even more so when Thalia patted her head. He's not wrong, Annie. You always look so adorable when talking about books and buildings. Said Thalia, laughing when Annabeth smacked her hand. Shut it, both of you. And I'm not cute. Said Annabeth, crossing her arms in annoyance, only for her blush to return when Naruto leaned in close to her. Then what about beautiful? Said Naruto, laughing as well when she quickly pushed him back and turned away to hide her red face. Whatever. The next one is Apollo's cabin. Annabeth said, motioning to the next cabin, with a Uzumaki squinting his eyes when he looked at it. Given the fact that the entire cabin is made of solid gold and was made to glow during the daytime, it's hard to tell if the gold is reflecting light or generating it. Either Skirt Chaser Jr. needs to turn down the light on that thing, or I'm throwing it right at his damn chariot. Said Naruto, smirking happily when the bright glow instantly faded away. Nice. Thalia said, smirking as well at the sight before scowling again as they turned to the next cabin. It was an all-silver cabin with silver curtains, decorated with paintings and carvings of wild animals, but mostly the stag. I take it that's kid number 2's cabin. At least it's not glowing like a disco ball. Said Naruto. It does, but only at night, otherwise during the day it looks like a regular cabin. Annabeth said with a small frown, making Naruto nod before looking to the next one. Looking at the cabin in surprise at how it looked more like a small factory, with brick walls and smokestacks like the forges and lots of gears around the entrance. That looks like a dwarf's dream shop. Thought Naruto, knowing dwarves would enjoy having a shop like that. That's Hephaestus's cabin, they're the ones in charge of maintaining the weapons and armor for campers. Annabeth said. I'm sure they'd fit in with the dwarves if they're good in the forges. Naruto said before gaining a blank look at the next cabin. It was a wooden cabin with a painted blue roof, pillars, checkerboard deck with steps and gray walls. It also has a pink door and potted carnations by the window. And even from here, Naruto could smell the perfume coming off of it. What is that thing? Questioned Naruto, not sure if it could even be called a cabin, making the daughter of Zeus snicker. That's Aphrodite's cabin, or, as I like to call it, the Barbie house. Do yourself a favor and ignore it, though do be on guard. Knowing Aphrodite's children, once they see you, they'll probably want some alone time. Said Thalia, turning to Naruto and looking him up and down, knowing they'd be after him with his looks and physique. Enjoying the view. Naruto said with a smirk. Yes. Thalia said shamelessly. Thalia. Said Annabeth in disbelief she'd say that. Don't pretend you weren't looking too, Annie. I know you were. Said Thalia, making the daughter of Athena blush again, but did glance at the whiskered redeed a few times. I don't mind, look all you want. Or take a picture, whichever you prefer. Naruto said, winking at Annabeth, who looked at him in annoyance, which was ruined by her grown blush. Are you sure you shouldn't be in that cabin? Annabeth said, letting out a huff as they went to the next cabin. With it looking to be the largest, oldest and most worn looking, peeling brown paint and a caduceus over the door. What happened to that cabin? Naruto asked with a raised brow, wondering why it looked so rundown, while Thalia and Annabeth frowned. That's Hermes' cabin, where the unclaimed demigods go, since Hermes welcomes them given how he's the patron of travelers and roads. But it's really crowded. Annabeth said, making Naruto frown. Let me guess, either because the Olympians don't care enough to claim their own kids the moment they show up, forget about them, or don't care enough to actually claim them, or their parents don't have cabins," said Naruto, not doubting most of the unclaimed demigods are children of minor gods and goddesses that don't have cabins. "All of the above, but mostly because their parents don't have cabins, Safi don't bother," said Thalia with her frown growing, while Naruto shook his head. "Do any of the Olympians even claim their kids the moment they show up, or do they have to risk their lives just to be acknowledged?" Naruto asked, wondering if any Olympians even cared enough to claim their children when they arrive. "Some of them, Apollo, Demeter, Hermes, Aphrodite and my mom. They all claim their children the moment they arrive. But for the rest," said Annabeth. "Ignore you and probably don't even remember if someone is their kid or not," said Naruto, with Annabeth sighing and nodded in response. "Well, what would you expect? They're gods, they're probably too busy to care or notice," Thalia said with a shrug, having accepted that most gods don't care about what the person they slept with did after all's said and done, nor when their children are forced to run from monsters for years. "That's no excuse, if they can't be bothered to care enough about their kids to even claim them, then they shouldn't have kids at all. They only care enough when you can do something for them," Naruto said coldly. For how much he hated his father, at least he showed up not even a day after his mother was killed and brought him to Asgard, making sure he still had a home and family. Even with how things turned out for him, it was still better to be acknowledged than ignored until he was useful. Annabeth and Thalia didn't have anything to say to that, knowing there wasn't anything they could say since he was right. Their parents only acknowledged them when they needed something, with it being incredibly rare when they did actually give any assistance. "And the last one is Dionysus's cabin," said Annabeth as they went to the last cabin. It looked like a regular log cabin with a roof and walls lined with grapevines, making it look like the simplest out of the cabins. Looking around, Naruto frowned when he didn't see any other cabins, making him look at the girls. "Shouldn't there at least be a Hestia cabin and a Hades cabin too?" Naruto asked, figuring those two, more than any other god and goddess, would have cabins. Hestia doesn't have a cabin, since she gave up her throne as an Olympian to Dionysus in order to prevent any infighting on who would give up their throne to him. "And Hadesha's not exactly welcomed and I don't think his kids would be," said Thalia said, knowing how terrified everyone is of her uncle and any kids he had likely wouldn't be welcomed. Both eldest of the Olympians and the eldest of the big three both without any cabins. Yet Hera has one that will never be used, while the kid number two's cabin is only used when the Girl Scouts are here. "There must be a joke in there, somewhere," Naruto said with a humorless smile. Though he wasn't really surprised, knowing the reputation Hades had, not helped by how he's constantly portrayed as the villain in pop culture. An unfortunate fate that most deities associated with anything considered evil suffers. Ironic how the ones portrayed as heroes are usually the worst, while the ones portrayed as villains are actually pretty nice or at least neutral and keep to themselves. Thought Naruto, shaking his head before he spotted someone standing by the hearth and tending to it. They were a beautiful and petite girl with a youthful appearance. She has blue eyes that glowed from the fire and mid-thigh length black hair tied into two twintails, which reach down to her mid-thighs. Her hair is tied with hair accessories that feature blue and white petals, along with bell-shaped ornaments. She also possessed a small frame, which was emphasized by her surprisingly large breasts. Her attire consisted of a white mini dress with a blue ribbon around her neck and one tied under her breasts around her arms, a pair of white gloves, along with being barefoot. Looking at the girl, Naruto already knew she wasn't human from the power she possessed, but more than that the calming aura she seemed to exude. Along with the feeling of tranquility, something he hasn't felt in a long time. Hestia. Thought Naruto, knowing exactly who it is and that only one Greek god could feel this peaceful and kind. As if hearing her name, Hestia looked towards Naruto and smiled at him, making the whiskered Reed smile slightly at how warm it was. "You can see Aunt Hestia, then," Thalia said, leaning in close to Naruto, who looked at her in surprise. "You can see her, too," said Naruto, making the Ravenet nod in response, giving her aunt a small smile and wave. "Yeah, I've seen her appear a few times to tend the hearth and even talk to her. Since after I came out of the tree, I really wasn't sure what to do, not help that the moment I came out I was put in my dad's cabin and had to deal with that creepy statue. So, I'd usually come out in the middle of the night just to get some space and alone time, and she helped me relax while I was easing into everything," said Thalia, thankful for Hestia's help and feeling more at peace when things started getting too stressful. "It always helps having someone to talk to, or just having them be there," Naruto said, understanding the feeling. "Indeed it does. And know you'll be welcomed by my heart anytime, Thorson." Hearing the voice in his head surprised the Uzumaki for a moment, but managed to not react and instead nod to the petite goddess in thanks. With Hestia's smile growing before she disappeared from their sight. The three then continued the tour, with the girls showing Naruto the dining pavilion, the amphitheater, the camp store, the armory, the archery field, and the sword fighting arena. And next we have the Pegasus stables. Annabeth said as they approached the stables, where the Pegasi were kept. Speaking of, do Valkyries actually ride Pegasi themselves? Or do you just call them winged horses? Asked Thalia. The Valkyrie don't have winged horses, that's another misinterpretation. They only ride regular horses through the sky over battlefields, collecting the souls of the dead. However, the strongest Valkyries do possess their own wings to fly around with. Naruto replied, making the girls nod. How exactly are Valkyries chosen? Are they handpicked by someone or can anyone become a Valkyrie? Annabeth asked. Anyone can train to become a Valkyrie. First they have to train to be the best they can be, then hope they get Odin's attention and earn the chance to join the Valkyries' ranks. Said Naruto as his mind turned to his sister, as well as her friends' comrades, Hildra and Ortland, with the trio making up one of the best Valkyrie teams among the Norse pantheon's ranks. Thinking of trying to get your own wings, Annie? Thalia said teasingly, making the daughter of Athena scoff. No thanks, I'd rather not have to go die in battle just to get a chance to be picked up by a Valkyrie. Though, I'm sure you'd fit in perfectly with them, high up in the sky, seeing everything down below. Said Annabeth, smirking at the Ravenet, with Thalia being unable to help but pale and shiver at the idea of that happening before she narrowed her eyes at Annabeth. You were nicer when you were 7. Thalia said, though she did feel some pride at how sassy Annabeth's become. I learned from the best, didn't I? Annabeth stated before they arrived at the stables, finding someone else already there, with Naruto unable to help but pause when he saw them. It was a 14-year-old, maybe 15, girl with fair pale skin, dark black hair that fell past her shoulders, and bright sky blue eyes. With her attire consisting of an orange camp half-blood shirt, a dark pink winter jacket with fur lining the collar, dark blue jeans with pink trimming, and black riding boots, along with a dagger strapped to her right hip. Naruto was also surprised at how developed the girl was, much more so than Bianca, Annabeth, Thalia, and Andromeda. With her looking even better by the aura around her, which made her seem like the most beautiful girl he's ever seen in his life. Yet despite that he could feel she was strong as well. Strength and beautiful, my kind of girl. Naruto thought, looking her up and down before blinking when Thalia punched his shoulder. Hey. Snap out of it before you start drooling. Said Thalia in annoyance at the dazed expression he got at the sight of the new girl, while said girl had approached them with an amused look on her face. Well, I usually don't mind being looked at, it'd be nice if I knew the name of a new admirer first. Said the girl, smiling in amusement, making Naruto blush lightly and mentally curse himself. Right, sorry about that. I just felt hypnotized by your beauty. And that's not a pickup line, I swear. Naruto said, adding the last part quickly, making the girl giggle, while Annabeth and Thalia couldn't help but feel slightly annoyed for some reason. It's fine and expected. Actually. Most people have trouble even speaking around me when I'm not controlling myself. Better. Said the girl, with Naruto no longer feeling the same draw towards her, at least not as strongly. Yeah. So, going by your looks and abilities, I'd say you're a daughter of Aphrodite. Said Naruto, figuring that's the only deity she could be related to. Yeah, she is. Naruto, this is Selena Beauregard, the head counselor of Cabin 10. Selena, this is Naruto. Which do you prefer? Annabeth asked, looking at him, unsure if he'd prefer Uzumaki or Thorson. Either's fine. It's nice to meet you, Selena, I'm Naruto. Thorson or Uzumaki. Said Naruto, not minding either name, as he wants to honor his mother by still using her name, and no matter what he is a son of Thor. You too, Naruto. And Thorson, that's a unique name. Said Selena, shaking the whiskered Redeed's hand, curious of a name like before looking at Thalia and Annabeth. Is he one of the new campers you were sent after? Selena asked, confused when they shook their heads. Nope, but we did pick up 2 new ones. Whiskers here, though, isn't even Greek. Thalia revealed, much to Selena's shock. What? But then what are you? Cause I doubt you're completely human. Said Selena, looking him up and down, being able to feel the power coming off him. I am a demigod, just not a Greek one. Replied Naruto, not really caring who learns who he is, given the Olympians will know soon enough if they don't already. That still doesn't make much sense. There are other gods besides the Olympians. Selena asked in disbelief, while Annabeth and Thalia nodded in response. Yeah, just something else we weren't told. Muttered Thalia, still annoyed something like that was kept secret. Did none of you really suspect, even a little bit, that other pantheons existed? Said Naruto, wondering how they could accept the existence of the Greek pantheon, but doubt that other pantheons could exist. I was running from monsters for 2 years since I was 10, and then in a tree for another 6 years, questioning the existence of other gods wasn't exactly a priority for me. Thalia said, crossing her arms in annoyance. I just didn't think about it. admitted Annabeth, realizing she should have at least suspected the possibility. I thought that it may be possible when I first learned the truth. Given that if the Greek gods were really, then what else could be real too? Selena said, having considered the possibility, but brushed it off since no one else seemed to consider the chance other pantheons existing. Keep that mindset, it's better to believe that there's at least a possibility that's the case and be prepared if you encounter something that wants you dead. Said Naruto, knowing it'd be more dangerous for them to doubt something exists, only to end up coming face to face with it. But the girl is nodding at his words, realizing that anything really is possible in the world they live in. So what pantheon do you come from? And who's your godly parent? Questioned Selena, curious of where he came from and whose son he is. The Norse pantheon, and I told you who my father is when I introduced myself. Naruto replied with a small smirk, making the daughter of Aphrodite frown slightly before her eyes widened. Wait, you said your name is Thorson? As in Selena said in surprise. Yes, his father is Thor. Said Annabeth, much to Selena's growing surprise. And no, he's not like he's depicted in modern media, he's apparently a giant asshole. Added Thalia, causing her to frown slightly. Oh. Does that mean he's not, said Selena before trailing off, unsure how to ask. He's not a muscle-bound superstar like Chris Hemsworth. No, he is not. Well, he's strong, he looks nothing like that. Said Naruto, knowing that's not even close to how his father looks. Oh well, I'm sure my sisters and some of my brothers will be disappointed by that. Selena said. And are you? Naruto asked with a raised brow, only for the Ravenet to smirk and look him up and down. With you around, not in the slightest. Replied Selena, making the Uzumaki smirk. Glad to hear it. Said Naruto, before he was grabbed by Annabeth and Thalia who started dragging him away. Okay, let's go Romeo. Thalia said, unsure why she's feeling annoyed, only that she is. You don't need to drag me, I'd happily follow two beauties such as yourselves. I'm sure the view of you two in front of me is amazing. Naruto said with smirk, causing both girls to blush, while Selena giggled at the sight. Hope to see you around, Naruto. Said Selena, giving him a wink before returning to tending to the Pegasi. Later. Naruto saw more of the camp as Annabeth and Thalia showed him around, while also asking more questions. Though he still couldn't shake his disappointment at how lackluster a camp full demigods was, having expected more. Even the forest that's filled with monsters isn't all that impressive, given campers shouldn't go in unless they're armed or with a companion. If they wanted to actually get stronger, they should go in with nothing but their own hands and not leave until they've killed something that'd be more likely to kill them. Well, that's about everything there is to see. Annabeth said once the tour came to an end at the amphitheater. So, do you have any questions for us? Said Thalia as she and Annabeth sat down. For the two of you? Not at the moment. But the person that's been following us, just one. You finally gonna come out or keep hiding in the shadows? Said Naruto, causing both female demigods to tense and reach for their weapons at learning they've been followed. Only to freeze when they saw someone rise out of the shadows, paling slightly at who it was. Though while only Annabeth had seen them in person, Thalia could guess for herself who it was. All three of the demigods knowing they were standing before a god. They were very tall, imposing and very muscular god with albino white skin that looked like it had never seen the sun, intense black eyes that looked like either the eyes of a genius or a madman, shoulder-length dark black hair with bangs hanging over his forehead. With him wearing long flowing black robes that looked to be made of shadows and tortured souls that were trying to escape. While floating just above his head was a crown made entirely of black flames. You must be Hades, then. Naruto said, making Thalia and Annabeth look at him like he was crazy, wondering how he could look so relaxed and calm. You know who I am, and could even feel my presence despite my helm's power. Stated Hades in intrigue. It's not that hard to guess who you are, given all the other Olympians are ruthlessly in what they do. If Sunspot and Kid number 2 are anything to go by. As for sensing you, I've simply gotten good at being able to tell when there's something dangerous is nearby. Replied Naruto, with the Lord of the Dead nodding at this, before glancing at Thalia and Annabeth. Be at peace, niece. If I still sought to bring you harm, I'd have done so by now. My business is with the Aesir. Hades said before turning back towards Naruto. So you all know. I'm actually surprised I didn't have to return any lightning bolts to your paranoid brother. Naruto said, having fully expected Zeus to try blasting him at least once. If it's time, I'm sure he'll do so eventually. But no, instead he's given Artemis the order to watch and kill you if you prove to be a threat. I would also be ready for Ares, despite what my brother has said, he'll likely be looking for an opportunity to try fighting you. And there's a fraud I'm sure you can guess her intentions. Said Hades, making Naruto sigh in annoyance. Great, dealing with Kid number 2 even more and being targeted by a god of war. Thought Naruto, annoyed that he now had to deal with Artemis as a babysitter, but Ares wanting to fight him as well. He wasn't even surprised at the mention of Aphrodite, knowing she wasn't the first love goddess he's had to deal with and likely won't be the last. Well, thanks for the information. But I'm guessing the real reason you're here is because of Bianca and Nico. Naruto said, causing Annabeth's and Thalia's eyes to widen in shock and realization, before frowning at learning that Hade had broken his oath as well. Yes, and before either of you even try thinking of accusing of me of breaking my oath, unlike my brothers, I don't break my word lightly. My children were born long before it was made and kept safe with the Lotus Eaters. To ensure you father didn't kill them, like he did their mother. Hades said, giving Thalia a dark look, stopping them before they could say anything. I have already claimed them as my children, and knowing how the rest of this camp views me, I doubt they will be warmly welcomed. So, I ask that you ensure they are looked after while you're here. Said Hades, with Naruto merely nodding. You don't even need to, I'm not going to let anything happen to them. Replied Naruto, the king of the underworld, nodding in response before they felt the ground begin to shake. The demigod's attention then turned towards the cabins when they saw the ground split open beside the Hermes' cabin as another one rose up from the ground, accompanied by the wailing of tortured souls. But the new cabin being made entirely of solid black obsidian with no windows, heavy columns on the portico with skulls lining the top of it, torches on either side of the top of the stairs, burning with green Greek fire, a horned skull above the doors, and a bident in the middle of them, with a bronze 13 in between the two prongs. Before Hades snapped his fingers, causing Naruto to be surrounded by a black aura. There, you are now allowed to enter my cabin. Said Hades, surprising the girls while Naruto nodded in thanks. Is that even allowed? Questioned Annabeth, motioning to the new 13th cabin, wondering if it's even allowed for gods to create their own cabins. Is anyone going to try stopping me? Hades retorted, making the daughter of Athena fall silent. One last thing, this is your one and only warning. If you ever do anything to hurt Bianca in any way at all, remember that I've spent millennia torturing souls while thinking of thousands of new ways to make the afterlife an unending nightmare. Remember that and use your imagination to think on what I do to the person that hurt my daughter, and know that anything you can imagine will be nothing to what I will do to you. Do you understand, Thorson? Said Hades with a mad and demented gleam in his eyes, making the female demigod shiver at what he had in store for the whiskered Reed. That will never happen, whether it's unintentional or not, I would never do anything to hurt Bianca. And if anyone tried, then they can try it without the benefit of a spine. Naruto said, making Hades smirk in approval, along with seeing the resolve in his eyes. Good. Hades said before his body dissolved into shadows as he returned to the underworld. Once he was gone, Annabeth and Thalia breathed more easily, relieved at no longer being in the presence of one of the big three, before they then turned to Naruto. How could you remain so calm, like that? Questioned Thalia, wondering how he didn't even flinch the entire time Hades was there. I've learned to get a good hold of my emotions, to not show what I'm actually feeling. And when you spend most of your life around gods that live for fighting, especially those you have no way of knowing what they'll do, you learn to get used to the presence they have. Replied Naruto before he left the amphitheater to go find Bianca and Nico. Since if Hades had claimed them, then by now nearly the entire camp would know, and he wasn't going to let anyone do or say anything to them, just because of who their father is. But Thalia and Annabeth following him, guessing where he was going, and despite their own issues with the Lord of the Dead. They also didn't want Bianca and Nico think they were alone, even more so for Thalia, since they were her cousins. It didn't take long to find the D'Angelo siblings, finding them with Grover by the cabins, before they saw the three demigods approaching them. Naruto. Guess what happened after we saw the orientation film? Chiron and Grover started showing us around camp, they have everything here from my game. Well, almost everything, since the monsters are kept in the forest, and Chiron said we couldn't go in without any weapons. But it's still so cool being here. And then me and Bianca were just claimed, our dad is Hades. That's cooler than anyone else it could have been. Said Nico, amazed and excited that his father is also his favorite mythomagic card. And it just means you have a lot to live up to, and a lot of training to do to master the power you have. Naruto said with a smirk, patting him on the head, before he looked at Bianca, who wasn't as excited as her brother. You alright, Bianca? Questioned Naruto, with the brunette nodding in response. Yeah, just a lot to take in is all, learning our dad is Hades of all people. And that everyone seemed excited when we were claimed. Bianca replied, having noticed how when they were claimed, plenty of campers looked either scared, nervous or wary at the sight of them. The Heavrian did seem like they were scared of us. Said Nico with a frown, his excitement lowering at remembering the reaction from their claiming. Unfortunately, that's to be expected, given his domain's Hades doesn't have the best reputation. Which also extends to any kids he has. Said Naruto, making the siblings frown at hearing this, along with worrying Bianca at how they'll be treated by the other campers. But if anyone tries giving either of you trouble, just let me know and I'll deal with them. Naruto added, making Bianca smile while Naiko grinned at this. Are you going to hit them with lightning? Naiko asked, only to yelp when Bianca smacked him. Naiko? He shouldn't hit people with lightning, said Bianca, not wanting him to sound so eager at the idea of Naruto striking anyone with lightning. You can also come to us too if you're having any trouble. I can even be the one to help you get all caught up on Greek history and everything else you need to know. Though we may have to expand the lessons given that there's now a lot more information I need to know. Annabeth said with a thoughtful frown, given with the knowledge other pantheons existing, she had a lot more research to do. Annie's right, aside from giving yourselves headaches by reading too much. If you have any problems we can help, we're cousins after all. And I will hit someone with lightning, said Thalia with a smirk. Yeah, I'm here if you need anything too, since I am the one who found you both, added Grover, wanting to offer his own help despite his nervousness with them being Hades' kids. I can help too, if either of you ever need it, someone said, making the demigods and Satyr look to see Andromeda walking towards them, making Thalia scowl. Oh really? You can help them? Here, I thought you'd be too busy with the other Girl Scouts. In fact, shouldn't you go back to your new cabin? Said Thalia, with the daughter of Poseidon frowning at her words. I've already gotten settled into the cabin, and Zoe said I'd start training tomorrow. But that doesn't mean I still want help when I can, said Andromeda, with Thalia scoffing at this and crossing her arms. Help? And how would you help when you all leave to go running around the country? Why would you even want to? I thought you didn't want to be the hero anymore. Or was that a lie? Thalia demanded, causing Andromeda to clench her fists. Just because I won't be at camp doesn't mean I won't still help. I'll be out fighting and hunting monsters, and clearly a lot are going to start showing up if Thorn was telling the truth. Andromeda retorted. Killing monsters, wow, such a big help. Like none of us can easily do the same, no we need the great hunters to do it for us. Thalia said sarcastically, with both girls looking at each other with narrowed eyes. Annabeth and Grover looked between the two nervously, worried they may start fighting each other. Something Bianca noticed and moved to stand in front of Naiko, despite his efforts to keep trying to watch and see what'll happen. While Naruto frowned as he looked between Thalia and Andromeda, sensing the growing tension, making him not even feel the desire to taunt the hunter. Thalia, I actually wanted to ask, since we both have control over lightning and storms, what can you do? Naruto asked, looking at the daughter of Zeus, wanting to change the subject and being genuinely curious of how her control over lightning measured up to his own. With it thankfully working as the Ravenette smirked and held up her hand, which sparked with electricity. I'm pretty good if I do say so, myself. I can sense lightning and electricity wherever I am, create blasts of static shock strong enough to knock someone off their feet and through the air, even fry someone's eyebrows off if I want to. I can also create even stronger bolts of electricity and focus my electricity into a shield whenever I'm hit to blast someone back. And I'm able to bring down lightning bolts from the sky that can be strong enough to stun or vaporize someone and focus them enough to channel the electricity through a building's wiring without damaging the building itself. As for storms, I can create a storm of lightning around me when I fight, said Thalia with a proud smirk at how strong her electrokinesis is, while Naruto nodded at what she can do. Very good for a beginner, said Naruto with a smirk, causing Thalia's smirk to vanish glare at him in annoyance. Beginner, I've been able to control lightning since I was 10 and turned dozens of monsters into dust with it. I am not a beginner, Thalia retorted, refusing to let her abilities be called those of a beginner. To me you are. I learned how to bring down lightning before I turned 6 and I've only gotten better. Everything you can do, I can do better. Well, my control over storms is clearly superior if all you can do is create a storm of lightning around yourself, Naruto said as his smirk grew, along with the daughter of Zeus's annoyance. Thalia growled in annoyance that he thought he could do everything she could and was better at controlling their shared elements. Before the Ravenette soon smirked, wanting the chance to show him who's really better. Okay, then prove it. You against me, and we'll see who's better at using storms and lightning, said Thalia, with a whiskered redeed smirk growing even bigger. You're on, just don't get too upset when you lose, replied Naruto, feeling eager at the chance to see how she measures up. As long as you don't start crying when I knock you on your ass, Whiskers, Thalia retorted, fully intending to take him down. Should we be worried? Naiko asked as Naruto and Thalia walked away to prepare for their match. Probably, yes, said Annabeth dryly, hoping that whatever they end up doing, the camp is still standing at the end. Later. It wasn't long before Naruto and Thalia arrived at the arena, with all the campers, hunters, satyrs and nymphs having filled the seats. Word having spread that Thalia would be fighting someone, making everyone curious to see who challenged the daughter of Zeus to a fight. With several girls and a few boys all looking at Naruto eagerly when he appeared. Though everyone, aside from those who were already aware, had been shocked when Dionysus returned along with Artemis. none of them expecting the moon goddess to be staying at camp with her hunters. But everyone also quickly noticed the fact Andromeda was sitting with the hunters and was dressed like them, much to their disbelief, sadness and anger from a few at seeing she joined the hunters. Heroes. Today, we welcome 2 new campers. Chiron declared before looking at Dionysus, who rolled his eyes and sighed before standing. Yeah. Please welcome the new brats, Brandy Dakota and Nikki Dangler. Said Dionysus, only for Chiron to whisper in his ear. I mean, Bianca D'Angelo and Nico D'Angelo. Also, we now have this kid to deal with, who's thankfully not another camper. Nato Yukage. Dionysus said, with Chiron whispering in his ear again. It's Naruto Thorson. Get it right next time, Daphne. Said Naruto, glaring at the wine god in annoyance. Yeah, whatever. Naruto Thorson, the son of Thor. Dionysus declared, much to everyone's shock, before they all looked at the fight in renewed interest and excitement. While they were shocked at suddenly learning the existence of Norse gods, they were now excited to see a fight between 2 children of lightning gods, even more so with the reputation Thor has. Ready to go down, Whiskers? Thalia asked tauntingly while bringing out her spear and shield. As long as you can make this entertaining for me. Said Naruto, grabbing his axe with it being coated in ice. Not a moment later, Naruto threw his axe straight at Thalia, who quickly raised her shield, grunting when the axe impacted it. The Ravenet feeling her arm vibrate from the blow before she smacked the axe aside with her shield and rushed at the whiskered Reed. Thalia thrust her spear at Naruto, only for him to immediately sidestep the thrust, before then bending backwards when she swiped her spear towards him. Before she instantly dropped into a crouch, dodging the Leviathan axe when it came flying at her back, returning to Naruto's waiting hand. With the Uzumaki giving a shout and bringing it down onto her. Acting fast, Thalia raised her shield, blocking the axe, which also released a burst of electricity and ice from the collision, sending both demigods skidding away from each other. The daughter of Zeus was then forced to jump to the side when Naruto slammed his axe into the ground, creating ice spikes. Before then ripping out towards her, sending a wave of ice at Thalia, which she quickly avoided. Rolling across the ground, Thalia threw her shield at Naruto, who smacked it aside with his axe, giving Thalia time to close the distance between them. Delivering a long sweeping strike with her spear, which Naruto blocked with the back of his axe. Only for Thalia to smirk and spin her spear around to slam the end of the shaft into his chin. Only to be surprised when his hand shot out, grabbing the spear before it hit him. Smirking at Thalia, before he slammed his foot into her chest, making her gasp as she was knocked back. Gritting her teeth from the strike, Thalia stood up and saw Naruto toss aside her spear. No weapon, no shield. What are you going to do now? Naruto asked with a smirk, while Thalia quickly glanced around for her shield and spear were, seeing the former wasn't far from where she was standing. Make you beg me to go easy. Retorted Thalia, with the son of Thor shivering dramatically. Before to Thalia's shock, he held his axe in both hands as it began glowing before a beam of pure ice and frost was shot at her. Jumping out of the way of the beam, Thalia ran towards her shield, shivering slightly from the feeling of the icy beam following her. With her feeling a sudden brush against her back, making the Ravenet dive to the ground, managing to grab her shield. Raising it, Thalia grunted as the beam hit the shield and began encasing it in ice before she held up her free hand as it sparked with electricity. Glancing over her shield, Thalia thrust her hand forward, releasing a blast of static shock at the Leviathan axe, breaking the ice covering it and stopping the beam. Not stopping there, Thalia channeled electricity into her shield before slamming it into the ground, releasing waves of electricity across the ground towards the Uzumaki. Doubting that it'd do much, if anything, to Naruto, Thalia rushed towards where her spear was lying. Only to come to a stop when the Leviathan axe came flying past her. Acting on instinct, Thalia raised her shield, gritting her teeth as she skidded back when Naruto slammed his fist into it. The Ravenet dug her feet into the ground, coming to a stop before thrusting her shield to slam into Naruto's face. Only for the whiskered Reed to grab the shield before it could hit him, but grunted lightly when Thalia slammed her foot into his chest, knocking him back. Before she then quickly recovered her spear and aimed it at him, firing a blast of electricity at him. With Naruto raising his hand and stopping the electricity, while Thalia moved out of the way of the Leviathan axe as it returned to him. You actually managed to hit me. Shame it only tickled. Said Naruto with a smirk, which Thalia returned as her spear sparked with electricity. Give me a minute, you'll be feeling a lot more than a tickle. Thalia said before swinging her spear at him, unleashing an arc of electricity. With Naruto holding his hand out, absorbing the electricity when at him before channeling it into his axe, which he then launched at Thalia. Making her dive out of the way, only for the Ravenet to be surprised when the moment the Leviathan axe hit the ground, it released a blast of electricity. The blast hitting Thalia and sending her flying back as she skidded across the ground. What do you think? Did that tickle or do you want me to go even harder? Naruto said as his axe returned to him, while Thalia got up and rolled her shoulders. "Bring it, I'll take anything you can give," said Thalia, smirking eagerly as storm clouds began gathering in the sky. Returning the smirk, Naruto began spinning the Leviathan axe, charging it with electricity before launching it at Thalia, making her eyes widen at how much faster it was coming at her. Raising her shield, Thalia grunted from the impact before releasing a burst of electricity from her shield, sending the axe flying away. But before she could retaliate, Naruto clapped his hands together, unleashing a boom of thunder and shockwave, forcing nearly all of the spectators to cover their ears at the loud boom. Thalia having the brunt of it as the shockwave sent her crashing into the arena wall, gasping for air as she hit the ground. "Waff Tartarus," was that Thalia said as she stood up on shaky legs, not believing what just happened. "God of thunder, remember. Maybe it's not as powerful as lightning, but having a clap of thunder and the resulting shockwaves that hits you can definitely be more painful, not to mention it," said Naruto before clapping his hands again, releasing another shockwave. Though rather than throw Thalia back, it just forced her to cover her ears, with Naruto summoning the Leviathan axe back to him and rushed her. Jumping into the air, Naruto held his axe up and shouted as he brought it down towards Thalia. Gritting her teeth at the ringing in her ears, Thalia managed to focus enough to raise her spear, calling down a lightning bolt straight on top of her and Naruto. Sensing and seeing the lightning coming towards them, Naruto stopped his attack and threw the Leviathan axe, shocking everyone when it actually cut the lightning bolt in half. Even more shocking when Naruto held his hands out, calling both halves of the lightning bolt towards him, and held them in his hands. But the whiskered reed unable to help but grin at the feeling of the lightning rushing through his body. Before he slammed his fists down onto Thalia's shield, the Ravenet managing to raise it in time to block his attack. The resulting collision unleashing an explosion of electricity that engulfed the arena ground, with Artemis and Dionysus putting up a barrier so it didn't end up injuring anyone. But Thalia gritting her teeth, surprised that her aegis hasn't already broken from the damage done to it, while also feeling the ground beneath her begin cracking. Before she gave a shout and thrust her shield forward, pushing Naruto back. Releasing a ball of electricity that slammed into him, knocking him away from the Ravenet. Not stopping there, Thalia raised her spear into the air with bolts of lightning jumping in between the storm clouds, before she cut her spear through the air, towards Naruto. Causing multiple lightning bolts to shoot down towards him. Seeing the lightning bolts coming down towards him, Naruto recalled his axe and began spinning it around above him, with the storm clouds beginning to swirl around right above him. Before the Uzumaki began pulling the clouds down and wrapping them around Thalia's lightning bolts, much to her shock. With it not being long before a tornado of thunderclouds and lightning was above the arena, much to everyone's shock, while Thalia felt a slight nervousness at getting hit by that. Only for the Uzumaki to then swung his axe through the air, causing the tornado to disperse, confusing the daughter of Zeus. "This is just a sparring match, not a death match," Naruto said at her confused look, not intending to do anything that'd end in her being seriously injured or killed. "I said I can take anything you can throw at me," Thalia said in annoyance, with Naruto nodding in response. "I'm sure you can, but it is your first time, I don't want to scare you away by getting too rough," said Naruto with a smirk, which Thalia returned. "Shame, because I like it rough," said Thalia before shooting blasts of electricity at him, with Naruto's smirk only growing as his eyes glowed brightly while his body began emitting lightning. Before the son of Thor seemed to actually teleport from where he was standing, before Thalia's blasts even got close. With the Ravenet then quickly spinning around on instinct to block an attack with her spear, only to be shocked when a whip made of pure lightning wrapped around her weapon. "Then I hope you don't mind the pain that comes with it," said Naruto, holding the lightning whip before jerking it back, sending Thalia up into the air. Recalling the lightning whip, Naruto condensed it into a ball of lightning which he threw straight at Thalia, with the ball expanding and surrounding her. Before he then threw the Leviathan axe, causing the lightning to be frozen, trapping Thalia in a ball of frozen electricity. Naruto then summoned his axe back and began spinning it above his head again. With dark storm clouds beginning to form around the ball until it was soon completely hidden within them. Once that was done, Naruto slammed his axe into the ground, bringing the ball crashing down as well, releasing a loud clap of thunder, followed by an explosion of ice and lightning. Once the smoke cleared, everyone saw Thalia lying on the ground, much to the worry and concern of her friends, only being relieved to see she's still breathing. "Ooh," Thalia moaned with Naruto going to stand over her. "Still wanna keep going or are you done?" Naruto asked, resting his axe on his shoulder with Thalia glancing at him, not even having the strength to move her head. "I wanna say I can keep going, but you weren't kidding about getting rough. And looks like I'm the one knocked on my ass and on my back," said Thalia, smirking at him, making the whiskered reed chuckle before offering her a hand up. "I can help with that," said Naruto, the Ravenet just barely managing to lift her arm and grab his hand before gasping in surprise as she felt electricity running through her body. Feeling her exhaustion and injuries fading away until she felt herself feeling perfectly fine. "Whoa. How did you do that? Thalia asked as she stood up, looking at herself, not seeing even a single bruise or scratch. Lightning and electricity can be used for more than just destruction, it can also be used to heal. You charge either yourself or someone else with electricity, focusing it on the cells to accelerate the healing process. I do it to myself passively, making it so any injuries I get heal in an instant. Naruto replied, much to Thalia's amazement that something like that was possible. He honestly didn't know something like that was possible. Said Thalia, wondering what else electricity could do. That's not surprising, hardly anyone with our powers think beyond just firing blasts of lightning, and that doing that is enough. But me, after refining and mastering my electrokinesis and atmokinesis, I began thinking of everything else I could do beyond what I was taught. You just have to imagine all the things you could do and see the only limits are the ones you believe exist. Said Naruto, the daughter of Zeus, looking eager at the chance to see what else she could do. Would you be able to help me with my training, then? Thalia asked, wanting to learn everything he can do for herself. Sure. Replied Naruto, not seeing a problem with helping her training, especially if it means having an even better fight next time. Awesome. And maybe I'll show you some of my own moves, Whiskers. Said Thalia with a smirk while looking him up and down before Bianca quickly walked up to them, followed by the others. Could I join the training, Naruto? Since I will have a lot to catch up on and it'd be nice if you could help. Bianca said, smiling at the Uzumaki, which he returned while Thalia's eye twitched in annoyance. Yeah, you can join Bianca, but that also means you'll need a lot of training if you want to get caught up. Naruto said. I don't have a problem with that, it'll be nice spending time together. Said Bianca, standing close to him while giving Thalia a smug smirk, much to her annoyance. But the brunette, having seen over the course of the fight the growing tension between Naruto and her cousin, and not just from the fight. With how the trash talking kept sounding more and more like flirting, much to her annoyance. And hearing Thalia's offer to show Naruto her moves, Bianca wasn't going to take any chances of the two being alone for an extended period of time. I want to shock her, and I don't know why, I just do. Thought Thalia in annoyance at Bianca butting in, but wasn't sure why she felt annoyed. Unaware that with the fact her father is Zeus, she had a desire for power, no matter what it was, and Naruto's certainly both powerful and strong. Making her already developing attraction towards him from his good looks and what she's seen of his personality grow even more upon seeing that he had the strength to go with them. Great. And Naiko, you're welcome to join since you'll need training too. Said Naruto, looking at the younger boy. Yes. I want to train too. Naiko said eagerly, excited after seeing how strong Naruto is and wanted to learn what powers he inherited from his father. Could I join too? Annabeth asked as while she didn't have control over an element, she knew it'd still be good to see what she could learn from the whiskered reed. Sure. Though just so you all are prepared, if you train with me, then you will give me everything you can, and then some, because I won't be holding back. Naruto warned, wanting to make it clear he wouldn't be going easy on them. If he trained them, they would be learning to actually fight and be prepared for what they'll be going against out in the world. But the four nodding in response, expecting that he wouldn't be taking things easy on them. Will he believe that's enough for today? Everyone is relieved of training for the day and may relax as they wish until dinner time. Said Chiron, feeling that there's been enough excitement for one day. You heard him, all of you scram and go do whatever it is kids do, nowadays. Dionysa said while shooing all the campers out of the arena, with everyone slowly leaving while talking amongst themselves at what's happened. Hunters, with me. Said Artemis, motioning her hunters to follow her back to their cabin. Oh, the moon goddess glanced back at the son of Thor, thinking over everything she saw him do in the spar and what he said. Unable to deny her curiosity on just how he's developed his powers, as well as feeling worried at just how much he may have been holding back. What kind of powers do you think Naruto has? Asked Naiko as everyone began sitting down in the arena, eager to see the demigod that'd be fighting Thalia. Well, Thor's the god of thunder, isn't he? So he has control over lightning. What else would he have? Bianca said, figuring that having control over lightning would be enough of a power. He's also the god of strength, storms, consecration, and fertility. It's likely Naruto would have control over storms too, along with being very strong. Said Annabeth, intrigued to see what Naruto is capable of, aside from what they've already seen and heard of his training. Would he really be that strong? Questioned Bianca, unsure just how powerful Naruto could be with the abilities he inherited from his father. I honestly have no idea. There are times when demigods won't inherit all the abilities that their godly parent have, but it's clear he does have power over lightning. But I don't know what else Naruto could have, not counting that he was personally trained by his father, which likely means he has far more control over his power. Annabeth replied, having no idea what level Naruto could be at when compared to Thalia. Given how Thalia had always been a natural fighter, even by demigod standards, along with getting experience during their time on the run. And after being freed from her tree, she also showed to be a quick learner, especially with her control over the mist. While Naruto, on the other hand, had years of training with his divine family, and with what he told them of his training, he's been thrown into dozens of dangerous and life-threatening situations. Giving him not just training, but experience against things none of them have faced before. Including gods that lived for fighting and killing. The daughter of Athena wanted to have faith in her friend, but even she wasn't entirely sure Thalia would be able to beat the whiskered Reed. Across from where the demigods were sitting were the hunters and Artemis, with the hunters unable to deny their interest to see a fight between the daughter of Zeus and the son of Thor. "Are you still angry at what the kitty said?" Andromeda asked while looking at Zoe, who had been scowling since they arrived at the arena. "I couldn't care less what that boy has said, no matter how grating. I am annoyed that Lady Artemis is being forced to remain at this camp rather than hunting the monster she has been tracking," said Zoe, not liking how their mistress is being reduced to essentially babysit someone, especially when it's a boy of all things. "Let it go, Zoe. What's done is done, and nothing I can do will change it. Besides, Apollo is aware of the danger this monster brings and will ensure it's dealt with. And while I may not enjoy my new duty, I do enjoy the chance to help in training my hunters without worry of any attack. As well as getting Andromeda caught up," said Artemis, smiling at her hunters, knowing it will be a good opportunity to train with them some more and helping Andromeda in her own training. With her words making the hunters happy for the chance to spend more time with their mistress outside of hunting. Before a few looked down into the arena curiously, then back to Artemis. "Lady Artemis, do you know Thor?" one of the hunters asked, wondering if she's ever encountered the god of thunder before, while the moon goddess inhaled sharply before releasing her breath. "No, not personally. I only ever know of him through his reputation, and he doesn't have the best reputation. What's known to everyone is that he loves fighting and killing, having done it enough that he's widely regarded as the biggest butchering bastard in the 9 realms. Though it's meant as an insult, I'm sure he'd consider it a compliment. He's also known to drink a lot, far more than even Dionysus," said Artemis, much to some of the hunters' shock and the disgust of others. "Then he's no different from any other man, only knowing how to kill and destroy," said Phoebe. Several hunters nodded in agreement. "Perhaps. But he has also earned a reputation to be feared and revered. Regardless of his personality, the god of thunder isn't one to be trifled with unless you desire a painful death," Artemis said, causing some of the hunters to shiver, while Andromeda frowned before glancing down in the arena. "What do you think he's like compared to his dad?" questioned Andromeda, making Artemis frown in thought. "I don't know. I can only go off what we have seen of Naruto Uzumaki. Aside from his desire to be a constant annoyance and antagonize anyone he pleases, he seems at least slightly tolerable. But there's no telling what he was like with the rest of his kind," Artemis said, willing to admit the Uzumaki seemed like a good person with how he cares for his friends. But given her knowledge of the Aesir, Artemis doubted that's all there was to him, combined with being trained by Thor and the rest of his family. The moon goddess was sure he had the same love of battle and bloodlust his father is known for, but was good at hiding it. And if what he did to the manticore is any indication, he can be cruel when he wants to. Artemis thought while frowning slightly, wondering what it'd take to make him lose control. While in their own booth, Chiron and Dionysus looked down into the arena in interest for the match, the former more than the latter. With the god of wine giving more attention to his can of Diet Coke, occasionally glancing around the arena. "Mr. D, what do you think of this boy, a child of Thor?" Chiron asked, unable to help but feel a little nervous at an Aesir being in Camp Half-Blood. The trainer of heroes was aware of the existence of the other pantheons, even having some friends among them, including the Norse. Having met Mimir, the Norse god of wisdom and knowledge, before he was imprisoned by Odin. So Chiron was aware of the reputation of the Aesir tribe, their bloodlust, arrogance, cruelty and even the sadism of the more twisted ones. And even if Naruto is just a demigod, he was a demigod of Thor himself, who wasn't only the second strongest and physically strongest of the Aesir, but the one everyone feared and wouldn't dare challenge. "Well, no one's died yet, so I suppose that's a positive," said Dionysus, knowing if he was the same as his father, he would have already started killing everyone. "And should he prove to be like his father and go after someone?" said Chiron, making Dionysus look at him with a rare, deadly serious expression. "Then they better hope they die quickly." Dionysus replied as that'd be the only mercy they could hope for from an Aesir, a quick death. Everyone's attention then turned towards the arena as Naruto and Thalia arrived, getting several girls and a few boys to look at the Uzumaki eagerly. "Oh my, it's been a while since we had such a handsome guy show up," Drew Tanaka, a daughter of Aphrodite, said while eagerly taking in Naruto's appearance and physique. "Don't even think about it, Drew," Selena said, giving her sister a warning look. Doubting that Naruto would be the kind of guy she could make fall in love with her and then break his heart and not expect him to retaliate for being manipulated. Not to mention how she saw the way Annabeth and Thalia both acted when they came by the Pegassi stables. Along with how close he already seems to be with Bianca. Plus, Selena already intended to stake her own claim, and while she was nicer than some of her siblings, she also had the same possessiveness when it came to seeing a guy she's interested in. And she had no intentions of letting any of her siblings try anything. Too late, I'm already thinking of a lot of things. And as far as I can see, the new cutie is available. Drew said with a smirk, only to suddenly feel a shiver go down her spine and someone looking at her. Looking at where the feeling was coming from, Drew couldn't help but gulp at seeing Bianca giving her a friendly smile, as the eyes of her normally brown eyes turned a sulfuric golden yellow with pitch black sclera. "No, he isn't," stated Bianca, being able to guess the kind of girl Drew was just by looking at her, and refused to let some petty popular girl even think of manipulating her friend crush. "You're doing it again, Bianca," Naiko said with a small smirk, having seen Bianca act like this before whenever another girl got too friendly or close to Naruto, and always enjoyed teasing her about being possessive over him. "Doing what, Naiko?" Bianca asked, turning to her brother with her smile still present, causing the boy to instantly lower his head. "No, nothing," muttered Naiko, knowing she can be scary when she wants to be. "That's why you shouldn't try anything, Drew," Annabeth said, giving the daughter of Aphrodite a dry look, while Drew shivered and quickly looked away, not wanting to risk angering the daughter of Hades further. Though everyone was shocked when Dionysus made the announcement of Naruto's parentage, everyone aside from those who already knew being shocked his father is Thor. Even more so at the knowledge other pantheons exists, given if the Norse gods are real then what other ones were. Before the fight then started, much to everyone's amazement as Naruto and Thalia began fighting, even more so with how Naruto could recall his axe after throwing it. Only for several to become confused when he slammed his axe down and ice spikes emerged from the ground. How did he do that? Is creating ice some power that Thor has? Andromeda asked with a frown, having never heard anything of Thor possessing cryokinesis. It's not him creating the ice. Well, Thor is a god of storms and cryokinesis is an aspect of atmokinesis, the boy isn't the one creating the ice, himself. Said Artemis, frowning while looking at the Leviathan axe, sensing how the ice came from it. Is it the axe, my lady? Zoe asked while looking at the moon goddess, with Artemis nodding in response. Yes, whatever kind of weapon that is, it possesses a large amount of power within it, a cold and frozen power. Artemis replied, wondering where he could have gotten a weapon like that. As the fight continued, Bianca couldn't help but feel her eye begin twitching as Naruto and Thalia kept bantering, even flirting with how they were talking. They don't even seem to realize what they're doing. Selena said, smiling in amusement, making Annabeth glance at her before turning back to the fight. Doing what? Questioned Annabeth, unable to help but feel annoyed for some reason, which only made the Ravenet smile grow more. I think I'll let it be a surprise. Use that big pretty brain of yours, Annie, said Selena, fully aware of the annoyance Annabeth and Bianca were feeling, and loving it. Whoa. Naiko muttered as they saw storm clouds begin covering the sky, with lightning and thunder going off in them. Only for everyone to quickly cover their ears when Naruto clapped his hands together, which sounded more like a clap of thunder and released a shockwave that threw Thalia back. With them covering their ears again when he did another clap, which thankfully wasn't as loud as the second one. Odds. Is that boy trying to deafen us all, said Zoe in annoyance at the loud sound. What? Phoebe said, only able to hear the ringing in her ears at the moment. It'll fade after a while, girls, said Artemis, but would admit it was annoying having a clap of thunder go off like that, along with it being surprising that he could even do something like that. Though, when Thalia brought a bolt of lightning down towards Naruto, only for him to throw the Leviathan axe, everyone was shocked to see the lightning bolt be cut in half. Even more so, when he grabbed both halves and absorbed the lightning. Did he just gyre and muttered in disbelief at seeing lightning be cut in half, while Dionysus idly waved his hand putting a barrier over the arena, with Artemis doing the same. Cut lightning in half, grab it, and then absorb it. Yes, he did. Dionysus said boredly, though raised a brow at the unexpected feat. It only became more shocking when Thalia called down more lightning, only for Naruto to seemingly take control of it from her and create a tornado of thunderclouds and lightning. Making more than a few campers nervous that he was going to bring it crashing down on top of them. That's honestly unbelievable, said Annabeth in disbelief and nervousness, unsure if this really how strong Naruto is or he's just making a statement about how useless it is to use his own power against him. That's so awesome, Naiko said, grinning in amazement that the whiskered Reed was capable of manipulating the weather like that. Wow, Bianca said, not believing how easily Naruto could do something like that, then just as easily disperse the tornado. Artemis narrowed her eyes as she saw Naruto's body began emitting lightning, before he seemed to teleport away from Thalia's attack, reappearing behind her. Creating a whip of lightning that he wrapped around her spear. Did he just teleport? Andromeda asked with wide eyes, wondering how he could teleport like that. The boy didn't. Mladdie, said Zoe, turning towards Artemis, knowing he didn't teleport but couldn't figure how he was able to move that fast. None of you would be able to follow it. He was using his lightning to augment his speed to the point that it looked like he teleported but was moving faster than anyone could comprehend. It also seems like he mastery of lightning to the point he can shape and manipulate it however he pleases. Said Artemis with frown as Naruto condensed the lightning whip into a ball, which he threw at Thalia as it grew and surrounded her. Everyone being able to tell the fight was over after this, but couldn't help but be worried when the ball was brought crashing into the ground, exploding in a blast of lightning and ice. With Thalia being seen lying on the ground, much to the concern of her friends, only being relieved to see she's still alive. He can use lightning to heal too. Annabeth said in disbelief when Naruto offered Thalia a hand up, seeing electricity sparking off their hands as the daughter of Zeus's injuries faded away. He keeps getting more and more interesting, stated Selena with a small smirk, causing Bianca's eye to start twitching at her words, along with seeing how close Naruto and Thalia were, before she quickly made her way down into the arena, being followed by Nico and Annabeth. Selena was tempted to join them at hearing Naruto's offer of training, but first wanted to see for herself how the training would go. She joined. Though Clarice is really going to be upset that she wasn't here. Thought Selena, knowing her best friend will hate how she wasn't here to see this and try challenging the son of Thor, herself. Everyone then began clearing out of the arena, all the campers eagerly talking amongst each other about the fight, along with how strong Naruto is. Later. Princess Andromeda. Meanwhile, on the Princess Andromeda cruise ship, the primary living space for the Titan army, Luke had just called a meeting after getting some news from his spies in Camp Half-Blood. News that made the son of Hermes nervous at what was to come. There's been news from Camp Half-Blood. We've learned that 2 new demigods have arrived, the ones the Manticore had been sent after. They've been claimed as the children of Hades. Revealed Luke, something that made the demigods nervous at having 2 more children of the big 3 to deal with. But that's not all, there's also another demigod, one that's already claimed, but not by an Olympian or a minor god. Instead, they come from another pantheon, a Norse demigod and son of Thor the god of thunder. And more than Thay, stronger than any other demigod there, having already defeated Thalia Grace, the daughter of Zeus, in a fight. Luke said, which really shocked the demigods, while a few minor gods tensed and looked nervous at this new development. Given how several of them were either old enough to know of Thor's reputation or heard of it, the power he possessed and the fear he could inspire. Knowing that even when the Olympians were at the height of their power, he was capable of rivaling Zeus, the strongest of the gods. But now with the decline of their worship, Thor was now much stronger, making him even more fearsome. It honestly made some of them start to wonder if joining the Titans was a good idea, if it meant there was a chance they would go against the son of Thor, or worse, if his father got involved. While the demigods were nervous with the knowledge they had of Thor in pop culture, given how powerful he's been depicted. It made plenty of them nervous at how powerful the real Thor could be compared to how he's portrayed in modern media. And now his son was a Camp Half-Blood, even more so that he was able to defeat Thalia, who was one of the biggest obstacles in their way given her potential role in the Great Prophecy. Luke was also shocked to learn of this, not only at the existence of other pantheons, but that Thalia had been defeated. Having seen firsthand how strong his old friend was, even he's never been able to defeat her before. But now learning she's been defeated, seemingly with little effort from the son of Thor, it's concerning how powerful this new demigod could be. So what if there's a son of Thor? It just means we have some wannabe superhero to deal with now, too. Said Alabaster C. Torrington, a son of Hecate, not seeing the issue of having one more demigod to deal with. You would be wise to watch your mouth, demigod. As well as who you underestimate. Said a voice behind Luke, making the demigod freeze, already knowing who it is. Before he slowly turned his head to see the general of Chronos' army, Atlas the Titan of Endurance. All of you would be wise to not underestimate a child of the Thunder God. Despite what mortals believe him to be like, the true Thor is far from some noble hero. Atlas sneered as he walked forward. The Thor, all of you would be little more than insects to be crushed. He wouldn't even need a reason, he would simply kill all of you because he could. The Olympians are even less to him, all it would take is a single swing of his hammer to bring Olympus crumbling down around them. He has slaughtered thousands, reveling in the destruction and death he has unleashed over the millennia. The only mercy you could ever hope for from him is a swift end. He is a destroyer, and anyone foolish enough to get in his way don't tend to live long enough to realize what a stupid mistake it was to challenge him. Said Atlas, looking around the gathered forces, seeing the demigods looked even more nervous at learning what Thor is really like. Until the Titan looked directly at Alabaster, who no longer looked confident at the idea of going against the son of Thor, if he's even half the destroyer his father is. Yet you believe his son does not pose a problem. Then by all means, return to that camp to deal with him yourself. Perhaps there may be enough of you left to bury once he's finished. Atlas said, making Alabaster lower his head under the general's cold and evil eyes. Personally, Atlas wasn't too concerned about the whiskered Reed, confident in his own unrivaled strength and power as a titan to deal with him. But it had been intriguing to learn how strong he already was, enough to defeat the daughter of Zeus, who was already a powerful demigod. But if the Olympians desire to get help from outsiders, then perhaps we will get our own allies. Atlas thought with a wicked smirk, knowing there were plenty of others who either hated the Olympians or would enjoy seeing them brought down from their mountain. Even better, they could use this weakened Zeus, with how his daughter and only living demigod in the modern era had been defeated by a foreign one. Yes, this will certainly be useful, thought Atlas, knowing that the Titans will soon retake their places as rulers of the cosmos. But Naruto. After his fight with Thalia, along with offering to train her, Bianca, Nico and Annabeth, Naruto and the D'Angelo siblings went to the Hades' cabin to get settled inside. Finding that the inside of the cabin looked much bigger on the inside. The first room they saw upon entering looked to be a lounge area with a grey carpet, black leather sofas and chairs around an ebony wood coffee table, bookshelves, and even a TV. While the long hallways lead to the rooms, each of them having a single black four-poster bed, a desk, and their own bathrooms. With there also being empty shelves and bookcases for them to use however they wanted. So, what do you two think? Naruto asked once they'd all chosen their rooms and gotten settled in them before they returned to the lounge area. This is awesome, said Nico, sitting in one of the chairs, liking how their cabin looked so far and that they had their own rooms. It's definitely not what I expected, said Bianca, not thinking the cabin would look like this but wasn't complaining, especially at not having to worry about sharing a bathroom. That's good. Though have you decided which of you are going to be the cabin counselor? Questioned Naruto, figuring each cabin had a counselor but wasn't sure how it was decided, if it was the oldest demigod, if they were chosen by their parents or cabin mates, or inheriting a certain ability. This made Bianca and Nico share a look for a few moments before turning back to the Uzumaki. Well, what if we wanted you to be our cabin counselor? Said Bianca, much to Naruto's surprise. Me? Naruto said, not expecting them to want him to be counselor if that's even allowed, given how he's not only a foreign demigod but's not even a camper. Yeah. You know more than either of us about all this and are a lot stronger. Nico said, with Bianca nodding in agreement and smiling at the whiskered Reed. You would be a much better choice than either of us since we're still learning about being demigods. Being a counselor seems like it'd only distract us from everything else we'd have to learn. Added Bianca, making Naruto look between them with an unsure expression. And you're both sure about this? Said Naruto, with the siblings nodding in response making him sigh. Okay, I'll be the cabin counselor. But only temporarily, once the two of you have gotten caught up on everything and gotten some training done, it'll be your responsibility. Naruto said, willing to be their counselor until one of them is prepared to take over, since it's still their cabin. That sounds fair. Bianca replied, with her brother nodding in response. Good. Know how are you both feeling, really? With all of this and then learning who your dad is? Naruto said, sitting down, while Bianca and Nico frowned at the question. I feel like I'm still processing everything. It all just seems to be going so fast, 1 second we're at a dance, then we're being attacked by a manticore, almost kidnapped and or killed, learn that gods and goddesses are real, a lot of gods apparently, we meet a goddess and her followers then her twin brother. And now we're at some medieval style summer camp that teaches us how to fight monsters. Then we learn our dad is Shades, the actual Hades and king of the underworld. Said Bianca, feeling physically and mentally tired from everything that's happened in such a short amount of time. Yeah, it's certainly a lot to take in all at once, even just learning about a single pantheon is hard to believe. But learning the existence of all the others can be pretty crazy. It'll get easier though, just take it one step at a time. And don't forget that I'm here if you need anything or have any questions. Naruto said, smiling at the brunette which she returned. What was it like? When you learned who your dad is, how strong and important he is? Said Nico looking at his Hades figurine before looking at Naruto, wondering what he felt after learning Thor was his father. Nico? Bianca said while frowning at her brother, doubting that Naruto wanted to talk about his father, only for Naruto to raise a hand. It's fine and understandable. If your dad was someone like Apollo or Hermes, it wouldn't be an issue since they have plenty of kids. But learning he's one of the big three, the eldest of them, and that he's a kinjit kind of puts you on a pedestal, as though you now have something you need to live up to. Said Naruto, causing Bianca to frown, unable to help but nod. While she's still processing everything, it did make her nervous to learn their father is Hades. Remembering what Andromeda said of how everyone started looking to Thalia for answers when she showed up just because her father is Zeus. And then everything Andromeda went through since learning the truth due to her own father being Poseidon. Now they learn their father is Hades, who doesn't have the best reputation given his position and the domain he rules over. Is that what it was like when you learned who your father is? When he brought you to Asgard? Everyone put you on a pedestal and expected you live up to his reputation. Bianca asked, with the Uzumaki shrugging in response. The truth is, I always knew who my father was, my mom told me when I was old enough. So, it wasn't the biggest shock when he finally showed up, to me it was just the chance to meet him in person. But then he took me to Asgard, and that's when the pressure came, the expectations that came with being the son of Thor. Naruto replied while looking up at the ceiling. I wasn't born a god like my siblings, that alone set me apart from them. And what led to my training, I wasn't only expected to live up to his reputation, but be even better since I was only a demigod. The ironic part is before my training began, I was excited about it, I wanted to prove I could be just as good if not better than my siblings. To show everyone I was worthy of being my father's son. And look how that turned out. Said Naruto, smiling bitterly, with the siblings frowning before he shook his head and looked at them. Anyway, when it comes to trying to live up to the reputation of your parents, don't worry about it and don't let anyone try pushing you to be better just to satisfy them. Be as good as you want to be, train the way you feel suits you the best, and never let anyone make you be something you're not, be who you want to be. Naruto said while giving Naiko a look at end, making the younger D'Angelo squirm slightly. Though I'm sure neither of you will have to worry about Hades placing any unreasonable expectations on you, since he's known to be one of the more fair and understanding gods. And while he doesn't show it, he cares about his children and accepts them no matter what. The only thing he'd want is what's best for both of you. Added Naruto, causing Naiko to relax while Bianca put a hand on his shoulder, smiling reassuringly at her brother. He did make this cabin just for us and claimed us the moment we arrived at camp. So that seems to show he cares. Bianca said, knowing what her brother is worried about. Naiko smiled slightly at them, before he soon perked up with an eager expression. Do you think Dad would let us summon Cerberus? Naiko asked, excited at the idea of being able to summon their father's guard dog. Only to yelp when Bianca smacked him on the head while looking at him blankly. You're not going to talk about a monster that's likely the size of a building, like it's a puppy you can take for a walk. Said Bianca, not even wanting to imagine what Naiko would do if their father did let him take Cerberus out of the underworld. She's right, Naiko start off small with regular hellhounds, those usually only grow to the size of a grizzly bear and are much more manageable. Naruto said with a smirk, making Naiko grin. Don't encourage him. Bianca said, giving the Uzumaki a warning look. What? I'm just helping him learn responsibility, a pet seems like a good start. Said Naruto, his smirk only growing. Yeah. I can handle a pet. Naiko added, wanting to have his own hellhound. Then get a normal pet, not something from the underworld. Said Bianca, only to blush when Naruto grabbed her and pulled her to sit next to him, while wrapping an arm around her. Relax Bianca, nothing bad would happen. You know I wouldn't let anything happen to you. Naruto said while looking at her, making her blush intensify at seeing how close they were. Yeah. Bianca replied, with a whiskered Retid smiling at her. Then you'll know I would never do anything that'd endanger you or Naiko, I guess. Said Naruto, smirking at the son of Hades. Hey. Naiko said in annoyance. So, trust me when I say that nothing will happen to either of you when I'm around. That includes if any of the campers start giving you trouble just because of you your father is. Okay. Naruto said. Oh okay. Said Bianca, nodding in response, while a smile slowly appeared on her face. If you two are going to start kissing, I'm leaving. Stated Naiko. Before quickly ducking and running to his room, laughing, when Bianca threw her shoe at him. I swear, I'll send you to meet our dad, myself. Bianca said while blushing brightly with Naruto chuckling lightly. You're feisty when you're angry. Naruto said in amusement as he stood up, only to be surprised when Bianca pulled him back down and laid her head on his shoulder. Bia said Naruto not expecting her to do that. You started it when you pulled me down, now you get to be my pillow until I say so. Said Bianca, blushing at her own action, even more so when Naruto wrapped an arm around her. I can live with that. Naruto said, smiling at the brunette, which she returned, enjoying the moment of peace after such a chaotic day. Later. With the hunters. Meanwhile, after night had fallen over the camp, Artemis brought her hunters to the archery range to start their training and help get Andromeda started on her own. Given that her hunters were at their strongest during the night, it made it the perfect time to start their training. How do you feel? Asked Artemis as she looked at Andromeda, who'd been surprised when they went outside and felt so much better in the moonlight. But now was smiling and waving her hand around with a ball of water in the air, one that she had actually managed to pull out of the air. Stronger, a lot stronger. Like I just jumped into the ocean and could fight Ares again for an entire day. I even feel like I could lift up the entire Canoe Lake if I wanted. Said Andromeda before focusing, causing the water ball to dissolve back into the air, making Artemis smile and nod. That's understandable, becoming one of my hunters doesn't just grant you my blessing, but you'll find your power over water is even greater at night. Given the symbiotic relationship between the ocean and the moon, as one thing mortals got right is that the moon's presence helps affect the tides, making them stronger on the side of the planet the moon is facing. It's why outside of my father and brother, your father is one of the few males I'm on good terms with. Artemis explained, much to Andromeda's surprise before she smiled in amusement. That sounds like something from Avatar, said Andromeda, with the moon goddess nodding in response. A few times mortals can make a decent show with such accurate details. Now let's see your archery. Artemis said, motioning Andromeda to stand with the other hunters who were practicing with their bows or hunting knives. Nodding in response, Andromeda stood in front of a target before grabbing her bow and knocking an arrow, yet the Ravenette felt nervous. Given all her other attempts at using a bow usually ended with her shooting everything and everyone but the target. I really hope that blessing extended to being able to use a bow. Andromeda thought, releasing a breath and shooting the arrow, smiling happily when it actually hit the target. Though it wasn't anywhere near the center, Andromeda was happy at finally hitting the target for once. Looking back at Artemis, the moon goddess smiled and nodded at her, making her smile grow before she began more shooting arrows, feeling more confident with each one. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys, let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, bye bye.